Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. This is Barbara here, and I am with Sylvie Doláková, and she will be talking about what attracts the attention of children. That's stories. She will be talking about stories as a perfect tool for motivation and contextualization. They practice language skills, math, science, music, art, craft, movement, which is all about CLIL. Children use story elements to cultivate communication, build cognitive skills and logical thinking, develop executive functions, fine motor skills, and multisensory perception. Sylvie, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you too.
Sylvie Doláková is a teacher trainer at university and freelance, specializing in teaching English to children 4 to 15-year-olds and university students, teaching English through art and stories, publishing materials for children by Pearson ELT Teachers Award for Best Innovation, presenting at webinars, national platform IATEFL Young Learners Teens SIG, and lecturing in many countries of Europe, including NILE and Norwich. So, after you, Sylvie.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for the delay. I will do my best to tell you everything about the magic of stories. So, if you have a look at this quotation by Albert Einstein, it tells you why I fell in love with stories. If you want your children to be brilliant, read them fairy tales. If you want them to be geniuses, read them more fairy tales. And I think stories are a perfect tool to teach children about the world. So let's have a look what the benefits of a story are. First of all, they provide information about the world. They are a source of information. They show real life, its problems and their solution, the situations where the children can get in. Stories can show good and bad and show the children the way how to behave and how to face those good and bad elements. Stories develop listening, concentration, vocabulary, and interaction in children. Stories provide repetitive dialogues that are easy to remember and understand the story. Stories provide space for developing executive functions. First, I didn't know what they are, but now I can fully agree that stories can do miracles. Stories cater for children's imagination. Children love to imagine the situations, to draw the pictures in their heads. And last but not least, children love stories, and not only children. So let's have a look how we can develop the theme of stories. First, it's a language part. We broaden vocabulary. We provide some material to broaden even fluent speech in children, especially in foreign language learning, but also in mother tongue. Stories can provide material for mathematics, for science. Art and craft is a big part of stories, as well as music, movement, and physical education. So let's dive into a story. I hope you all recognize the story. It's the famous Little Red Riding Hood. So first, let's introduce the text. What you can see now is so-called picture reading. Picture reading is quite an essential technique for pre-literacy skills because when you read to your children, they are exposed to the text in its visual image, and at the same time, they can hear the sound, which both reflects on the language itself. So it's much better than teaching little children letters. Later, when they learn how to read on their own, they welcome this form of the text because they read the pictures. They are happy to read the text with pictures and they like it. But first, what we do is the vocabulary job. So let's have a look at some flashcards. What can we do with flashcards? There are many ways how to exploit the cards with children. So let's have a look at 10 examples. First, children name the pictures. Thus, they gain the concept, what the word means, and they grab the pronunciation of the word. Then, what is very useful for children is clapping the rhythm because it belongs to a pre-reading skill as well, and it helps possible future dyslexics to expect the length of the word. Distinguishing sounds, again, very important for children who might suffer from dyslexia, which is unfortunately recognizable only later. So children should learn which sounds are within the words in initial, middle, or final position. Listening dictations. We dictate the words and the children place them either in a line or later by the means of prepositions. Put the Little Red Riding Hood picture above the wolf. Put grandma to the right of the wolf. So they learn not only to listen to, concentrate, decode the message, but also orientation where to put the picture. Next category is categorizing. Divide the pictures into living things, non-living things, into people, animals, plants, and so on. Ordering and sequencing is also a very important skill in children to build by the means of flashcards. What's missing? The famous game practices memory in little kids. Comparing pictures, associations build analyzing and thinking skills. And description and riddles provide some space for speaking, later writing skills. So these were 10 tasks what children can, or 10 suggestions, what children can do with flashcards. Then we can work with sequencing cards. Sequencing cards show the particular scenes from the story. Looking at the pictures, children can recognize the scene, they can describe what they can see, and actually they retell a part of the story. Very often they use the phrases from the story. So it's very beneficial for them in terms of learning fluent speech. Let's have a look at reading skills. So for example, this card reading is very good for children because they can learn about word order, placing the cards together to make a sentence. It teaches them to read small pieces of text, which looks quite easy for them, but combining them in a sentence is a very important process. Then we have next possibility how to use the story. For example, in this series of pictures, we can describe particular fields. So the first one, Little Red Riding Hood is under the tree. Do you agree? Okay, can we say Little Red Riding Hood is to the right of the tree? Can we say Little Red Riding Hood is under the tree? The tree is above Little Red Riding Hood. The tree is to the left of Little Red Riding Hood. Can you see how many sentences we can make over just one picture? And if you look at the right-hand side picture with the hunter, Little Red Riding Hood, and the basket, we've made a record of 16 phrases with this picture. Children love those unusual sentences, not the first one that comes to their mind. Okay, let's go further. Now, what do you know about, for example, Little Red Riding Hood and a wolf? This so-called Venn diagram makes children think about characters. So to the left-hand side, they write the facts about Little Red Riding Hood. She's a girl, she lives in a house, she has mother and father, probably. He's not mentioned, isn't he? And she loves her grandma. How about Wolf? He lives in the wood, he runs on his 4 paws, he's an animal, he's fairy, he's wild and fierce. Do they have anything in common? Children usually refuse to admit that they could have anything in common. But then they come up with the idea, but they both have 2 eyes, 2 ears. They meet in the wolf. And mischievous teachers in my workshops sometimes say they both like Granny. So it shows that the world is not only black and white, but it has a lot of layers. Isn't that a clever idea? Okay, let's go a bit further. Now we have a picture maze. The hunter wants to find his dog. He has to go through the maze and he meets or collects some objects. So children describe his way through the maze and they produce sentences, which is very desirable. Now let's skip into mathematics. Little Red Riding Hood's basket is a fantastic object because we can place apples in this basket. We can count the apples. We can play card games counting the apples and creating the visual image, subtizing in children's minds. We can even make some calculations. So, for example, this worksheet can teach that 2 apples plus 3 apples equals 5 apples. And the children can make the graphic report in boxes provided below. But the basket has many more positive features. For example, if you have a look at this little chart, it shows you how to cut and complete the basket that can be used for language analysis, for pronunciation. Here you can see a few baskets that are completed and ready to take the pictures containing the same sound. Here you can see some detail. Pictures are already placed around the right baskets. Leaf, sweet, in a green basket. Bat, hand, and bag in a yellow basket because they all contain a sound. Children love working with these baskets, and if they are properly guided, they are able to learn phonetic transcription in a very easy way and at a very early age. You would be surprised to hear that 5-year-olds are able to distinguish those symbols. But it would deserve another webinar, sorry. Let's go back to Little Red Riding Hood's basket. Now we are going to sort fruit and vegetables in 2 baskets. Fruit in a yellow basket, vegetables in a brown basket. So apple, yellow basket, lettuce, brown, peach, yellow, cherry, blackberry, yellow. How about tomato? That's a problem because there are 2 points of view. One is user's point of view, saying that tomato is a vegetable, but botanical distinction says it is a fruit. So it depends on you which point of view you will present to children. They are able to accept both, in my opinion, or my experience. Now, what are we going to do right now? Every time I present this picture, teachers at conferences and in my workshops say, we are going to wash them. Well, no, we are going to do an experiment, physical experiment. We will put the pieces of fruit and vegetables in a bowl with water, and we will observe if they sink or float. But first, we do some estimation. So, here is a picture of a large bowl. If you think it will float, place it at the top section of the bowl. If you think it will sink, place the picture in the bottom section of the bowl. Children think ahead of the activity, activizing their prior knowledge. Of course, if they can write, they can make a list in this kind of a worksheet. Then we go back to our experiment. So apple will float. Lettuce will float. Peach will sink. How about tomato? Here, I always advise the teachers to get as biggest apple as they can and as smallest tomato as they can. And children will be shocked to see that a huge apple floats and a tiny tomato sinks, which tells them it's not about the weight. It's something different that makes the fruit and vegetables float. Actually, it's the air that gets inside. Yeah. Okay, speaking about fruit and vegetables, how about analyzing its weight and price? So I made a list of not only fruit and vegetables, but also items of food that you can use in everyday life. I weighted them, I put an average weight and some average price. Actually, I invented my own currency called money unit. Yeah, it doesn't resemble to any other currency in the world. It's just my estimation. Yeah. And with these little cards or pictures, you can complete a few tasks. For example, buy 5 strawberries, 3 apples, 8 plums, and a kilo of potatoes. How much will you pay and how heavy will your basket be? Or, you've got 12 money units and you can only carry 3 kilos. What can you buy? Another task says, for example, find out what your family eats for Sunday breakfast. Ask your mom. Make a list and calculate the price of your family's breakfast and how heavy is mom's bag when she has to carry everything home. Fruit and vegetables can teach us even more. So, for example, let's have a look here. Do you know how to cut an apple? In half. How many parts do we get? 2. There are 2 halves. Now, can we divide a banana among 3 children? Yes, we cut it twice to get 3 parts. They are called 3/3. Now we need to divide a pear into 4 parts, but it's irregular. So first we must turn it to see the regular shape from the bottom or from the top. Then we cut it in half and in half again, and we get 4/4. The bunch of cherries has 5 fruits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What if we eat 3? There are 2 left. They are called 2/5. Is it difficult? No, it isn't. So now children can easily divide a tomato into 6. It's easy, isn't it? So now we can practice naming the fractions by the means of pictures. Then matching the fraction in numerical image and pictures together. Once the children master that, they can play dominoes with those little cards, and they can work with worksheets, coloring the fractions. So that was mathematics. Now I would like to address women. Are you good at reading maps? Well, I am not. My husband always complains that I can't read a map when I'm sitting in a car. I can't see where to find a particular place. So that's why I made a map for Little Red Riding Hood. Can you see Little Red Riding Hood's house? It's on the right-hand bottom corner, the blue one with flowers. Yeah? And Granny's house is in the opposite corner, at the top, the small brown house. So how many paths can Little Red Riding Hood take to get from her house to her granny's house? Many, many, many. And children try how many, describing where they are walking, what they can see on the right, on the left, where to turn right or left, practicing not only items of vocabulary focused on the countryside, but also fluent speech, left and right orientation. And it's not little, is it? Then there are those coordinating data, because if you need to know very quickly a particular place, then the coordinators will help you. So for example, where is the yellow house? It's in a section B4. Where is Little Red Riding Hood's house? It's D4. Granny's house is A1. And the children communicate this way because one tells the coordinators and the other one answers. So it's a basis for a dialogue. Okay, a few more logical tasks. For example, this is a graphic recording of the task. Little Red Riding Hood met the hunter once on Monday, 3 times on Wednesday, and twice on Saturday. How many times did she see him that week? On which days didn't she see him at all? Which day did she meet him most times? By the means of tallies, children make a record, and they can easily see the results and the answers to the questions. Then we can use this system to provide children with a chart, and there are many questions they can answer, but not all of them. So the fast learners, the fast students can solve the problem, answer the questions, and they even can make out a few more questions for their peers. Let's go to the science part. It was raining at night, And now we can see a lot of footprints. Connect them with the right pictures and the right words. Children love being those spies and detectives, and to discover which footprints belong to which animal or the girl. Then we have worksheets to consolidate some knowledge. For example, what do we know about hunter? First, children can write something. If they are a bit weaker thinkers, there are sentence openers for them. For example, he wears. So they realize, he wears some kind of green clothes, jacket and trousers and boots. He lives probably in a house because all humans do, but the house is definitely in the wood. He works in the wood, and maybe he has a sharp knife, and he set Little Red Riding Hood and her grandma free. So it depends on the level of children, what they can and are able to write. Now, let's skip into a bit different story. I'm pretty sure you all know the story of the enormous turnip. So we can do all the previous activities and a few more. For example, here you can see the example of a craft activity. This is a turning wheel with individual sections of the life cycle of a turnip. So when the children turn the wheel, in the little window they can see the seed, the seedling, and the turnip. And it goes all around again and again, teaching children about the life cycle of a turnip. Then I made a few pictures of what children made during this story. If you have a look at the picture above, actually this is a broken CD traced around twice, glued in the bottom part. One circle was cut in half, and when you open it, then you get the little pocket in which children can insert anything what they wish to grow out of their seed. Children love this activity. So maybe I was too fast. I don't know how much time we have, but I expect some of your questions.
Oh, Sylvie, thank you very, very much. I thought it was very inspiring, especially now here with this CLIL approach to storytelling and lifting projects and things from the stories. That was brilliant. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you too.
I'm waiting for people on YouTube to come up with questions. Well, I can ask you a question myself. Do you have any principles for when you're working with a certain story? Do you have any kind of skeleton, like, oh, I would like to develop a maths project or something related to geography? Or it depends on the story you have for you to come up with the additional things you can do?
Yeah, actually, I designed my own series of story materials called Story-Based Learning. And I started 6 years ago with a very fixed structure. Those picture materials to develop speaking, mathematics, pictures to count, to sort, and so on. But then I realized each story has something very special. So each story has a unique part, which makes it different from the others. So yes, I have a fixed structure, but at the same time, each story deserves to practice different things in children.
Right, yeah, I totally agree. Is there anything, any kind of skill or any kind of specific area that would be maths, arts, music, or one of these CLIL procedures that you find the hardest to work with storytelling, or you don't think there is such a thing?
Well, I wouldn't say there is anything which is hardest, but I would stress out the most important part of storytelling. There are a few aspects. First, we actually teach children to listen to a text, because nowadays children, especially those this tablet generation, is not used to listening the stream of speech. So we actually teach them to listen, to concentrate, to decode the message, to wait patiently, and then to consume the content of the story. And there is another part, which are songs. I mentioned several times dyslexic children. I found out a very alarming a rule or aspect, that dyslexics can be seriously diagnosed only when they are 9. But if we can help them, it's most efficient in early years, before they are 7, because that's the initial stage when children are ready and open for communicative elements. And once we introduce those speech things and sound things, because it's connected to vision and sounds, then we can make lives of future dyslexics much, much easier. Some researchers even say by 75%. So I stressed out a few elements in my presentation, but I didn't have time to mention more. So, for example, those clapping activities, then looking for a special sound activities are among them. Sequencing is another important area. And the most important area are the songs, because songs influence the way the brain is thinking. If you think about people who stammer, once they sing the song, they stop stammering. That's the same with dyslexics. They have a very short memory. They cannot remember 5 lines of the text. But once they have it in a song, they are able to remember an enormous amount of the text. And they are not inhibited to speak, to produce it, to remember it. So singing is the best method to teach children.
That's fantastic. Fantastic news. Let me ask you one final question. Your work goes with children from 4 to 15 years old, right?
Yeah.
How do these older children or teens in our scenario, because I can tell you from my teaching context, usually storytelling doesn't sound appealing to teenagers like 15 and 16-year-olds. They think that we are comparing them to children, and sometimes they are a little hesitant. How do you approach that? How does it go in your teaching context?
Yeah, working with teenagers is quite difficult for me, as I used to be a kindergarten teacher. However, I found out that teaching English is the same as tennis. It always depends on how you serve it. Yeah? So if you serve even the childish story to teenagers, for example, with a trick, yes, I know it's a childish story, but I have quite an important task for you to solve. Then they can follow the song, looking forward to the adultish task. Yeah. And of course, the choice of stories also matters. but I have the best experience with little childish stories for teenagers, which is acceptable for EFL, English as a foreign language, because they know they are not able to follow the films in the original version. So they can see, oh, I can understand the whole story. And they are very happy about that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's about changing the perception, right? That's
Yeah,
very
definitely.
nice. So Sylvie, thank you very, very much on behalf of the BrELT team.
Thank you. Can I have a last word, please?
Of course, yes.
Because as for the technical problems, which I apologize for once again, it really worked when we tried it a few days ago. I asked my husband to put the slides on my website. You will find it as the item in the e-shop. It will be, of course, free of charge, but I have to guide you a bit. When you open the e-shop, you click on English on the left-hand side. Then, when it opens, you will see a story-based program and teaching materials. So please click on teaching materials and you will see it there.
Okay, thank you very much. That's fantastic. I'm sure. And just for you to know, we mentioned those technical problems here on YouTube, and everybody was very understanding. They said, no problem, we can follow.
Oh, thank you.
People are here saying that your presentation was very clear and inspiring. So thank you very much once again.
Thank you too.
It was a pleasure to have you. I'm going to share the screen now for our certificates. Can you see it?
Well, I can't.
Okay. Yeah. So for our certificates, you go to bit.ly/BrELT YLTSIG 2018 certificate. This link will be open for the next 30 minutes. And then you just register your email and you're going to receive the certificate. All right? Okay, so Sylvie, once again, thank you very much for being with us, sharing your experience and your expertise. It was a pleasure. And for those of you still following us, we still have more. We have Valéria França now talking a little bit about puppetry in the young learner and teen classroom. That's also a very nice topic. So I hope to see you in a few minutes. Thank you. Bye-bye.